Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing on today? I am super and super excited. I am fangirling. We are coming to you with a lunchtime new release exclusive. We're hanging out with author Aimie K. Runyan on today, guys. Let me tell you, it is hot off the press. It is a new one, Mademoiselle Eiffel. It's a mouthful. This is her new book, hot off the press. It came out on yesterday. And yes, we'll be sharing with you how you can get your hands on a copy of this book as well. And of course, she may spill a little tea, all of that good stuff as well. But you know what to do. Like, tag, and share, my friend. Tell a friend to come on down to the cafe. It's a lunchtime new release exclusive with author Aimie K. Runyan. Now, Aimie, before we go any further, my friend, please introduce yourself to the people.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Angela. My name's Aimie, and I am the author of, what is this, 8 historical novels. And I've got a contemporary novel and another one in the works for next April, and 2 co-authored novels. And I love historical fiction. It's definitely my genre of choice. And I'm the mother of 2, a wife, and I live in Estes Park, Colorado, which is amazing. And before this life, I was a French teacher.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay, you
Hence,
got right. Okay, now tell us a little bit about this French teacher. How long did you do it and all that? How did you get into being a French teacher?
well, I got a master's degree in French because I just, what is funny is that I took French for the first time. Like each of the teachers got to do this little micro class about something they were good at. And one of the teachers taught us French for like 4 weeks in 3rd grade. And I loved it. And I realized I was really good at foreign languages. And so when I got to high school and I could take like a full French class, I didn't hesitate, and I took all 4 years of French in high school and majored in it in college. I went in first day of freshman year when we were doing placement testing. I tested in junior year, which is the highest they let you test
Wow.
in. And so, like, I started my major as a junior, which was awesome. And I got to live in France for a year, and then graduated and lived in France for another year teaching English through the Fulbright grant program. And I got a job teaching French at the high school level after graduate school, and did that for about a decade. And I actually taught online for a while before it was even cool, so I could stay home with my babies.
Uh
And
huh.
yeah, so it was something I did up until, gosh, 2015. That was my last year as a French teacher.
Wow, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. That is super cool. Now, I want to ask you this because, a lot of your books, of course, they have a French theme or Parisian theme or what have you. But I want to ask you this because not only do you write historical fiction, but you write contemporary fiction. But I
Mhm.
want to ask you this. Aimie, would you say that historical fiction found you or did you find it?
Well, I gravitated toward it as a reader, and I often think that's the best path forward for a writer is to find the genre that you love to read. And I remember when I was young, my sisters were reading the Sweet Valley High books, and I thought they
Yeah.
were fun, but they came out with this historical saga about their great great grandmother, then their great grandmother, and on down the line, from the time they were immigrating from Sweden through their mom in the 1960s, and took them through these poignant moments in history. And whereas most of the books were fluff, I loved this view of the family. And then they came out with one for the dad's side, and I just absolutely loved looking at the span of these family histories, and it intrigued me. And this is middle school.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I when I was went through a big romance reading phase, I read historical romance. And then I remember I got a massive gift card when I was in college, for Powell's City of Books in Portland, which is like, kid in a candy store. I was freezing. And my uncle, who was with me, very learned man, got a degree from Harvard, way smarter than I am. And he said, I said, was asking for recommendations. And I said, I love books set in the past. He's like, you mean historical fiction? Yeah, that. And he said, you need to read Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. And he was right. Still have a copy up here somewhere, and it is one of those books that made me fall in love with the genre. And it was one of the first really serious works of historical fiction that I'd read. And it was, in the middle of undergraduate work. I'd been reading so much for schoolwork. I didn't have time to read for fun. And so I took a Christmas break with that book to read it for pleasure. And it was
Yeah.
just immersive and I loved it so much. I probably read it a half a dozen times since. And that and I'd say The Handmaid's Tale were two books that really became part of my soul. And so it's like I admire the richness of Ken Follett's world and the kind of social messaging of what Margaret Atwood was trying to do. And I try to combine both of those things. So I've never written anything quite the same, doorstopper length as Pillars of the Earth, and I'm not sure I ever will. But trying to do the world building as well as the social messaging, even if the social messaging is different than what Atwood was trying to convey. I mean, we got workers' rights in a bakery in Paris, that sort of thing. And the dying, even in my contemporary, the dying French village in Memory of Lavender and Sage. I set out to write escapist, fun French fiction and ended up doing a social commentary because it's me. I
Wow.
can't help myself.
I love that. I love that. Well, guys, if you're just joining us, we are super duper excited today at the cafe. Not only are we coming to you doing lunchtime, but we are hanging out with author Aimie K. Runyan on today, guys. And it's a new one, hot off the press. It is Mademoiselle Eiffel. And again, we will be sharing with you how you can get your hands on a copy of this amazing story. Now, I want to ask you this, okay, if you could spill a little bit of tea. Okay, Aimie, I'm a cover girl. I love a good cover. What was it like when Aimie saw this amazing cover for
Oh, I
the
was
book?
thrilled.
Please
So
share.
this is iteration number 3, and I told
Oh,
them, yeah, like they came back with some, and the top was like sketched on parchment, and it was just a bit blah, like the coloring, it was too beige. But I told them I wanted a woman looking up, dwarfed by the tower, and I wanted it to go like I envisioned it in 3 tiers, like completed sketches, or it's like sketches built, and then the lights up at the top, which were put
yeah.
in. Yeah, the lights were established like I want to say like 11 or 12 years. Like they put them on for 1900. So the tower had been around for 11 years before they lit it up. They figured the bright red, and they did the bright red at my behest. I said it has to be bright red because the tower has not always been, the kind of bronze color that we're familiar
Yeah.
with. It's gone through 7 different color changes. The color that we're all familiar with up until very recently was a special formulation of 3 shades of bronze,
Uh-huh.
so that it looks like it's one uniform color, but it's really 3. But of course, they
Oh,
painted it gold for the Olympics.
wow.
Fabulous. Yeah, I was there
Spilling
in
a little bit
2020.
of tea.
Yeah, I know. And but when I saw this, like I said, can we switch this to blueprint paper to give it more of a contrast?
Okay.
And I had a friend who was way better at graphics than I am, Chris Walder, thank you. I had her mock it up. And so to show them what it would look like, and they bought it. They thought it was a great
Wow.
idea. And you have to worry about the cost of stock art and things like that, but they were able to find blueprint background for probably free, hopefully, and to make that happen. And they did such a good job. I was so thrilled.
Wow, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing about your cover. Oh my goodness. Now, Aimie, I have to ask you this as well. Okay. Now, this it's gonna require you to spill a little tea with us. Okay. Now, the title, and I have to say it slow. Mademoiselle Eiffel. Was this your original working title or the title came later? Tell us about that. Spill some tea.
Rarely, this is one of the few times this has ever happened. It was the original title I pitched.
Ooh, okay.
I knew because I mean she's the star of the show. It is not a it's not an ensemble cast sort of deal. This is Claire's story,
Yeah.
and there were other books with similar, like Mademoiselle Chanel and Mademoiselle. There's a couple others that are not coming to mind. So it's a formula that had been done, but it never Mademoiselle Eiffel. And it is the story of her as Miss Eiffel. That's what it means, Miss Eiffel, even after she's married. I mean, she is a part of the Eiffel family. She lived with her father until he died, even though
Yeah.
she was married. And so just conveying that she would always and forever be kind of Mademoiselle Eiffel, the oldest of the Eiffel daughters, and kind of heir to that title. Even though she was Madame Salle for a good portion of her life, she was Mademoiselle Eiffel. And um, Tessa, my editor, is like, "Yeah, that's the title." From the beginning, I didn't have to fight. And I've been through several books where we went through a lot of iterations for titles. The Memory of Lavender and Sage was like I had a brainstorming session with another women's fiction author to come
Yeah.
up with something decent, but it was hard. But Mademoiselle Eiffel always was.
And it works. Yes, it definitely works as well. And let me just tell you, Aimie, they are giving you cover love. Caitlin Warren said that she loves the cover. Of course, Jennifer Copeland, she says she loves the cover as well. And we have a Susan Kelman, author Susan Kelman, hanging out with us today. Hey, and she says she loved Amy's books. I love that. I love that as well. Guys, if you're just joining us, we're hanging out with Aimie K. Runyan on today. It is her new one, hot off the press on today. Now, okay, so Aimie, you have to share with us a little bit about what inspired this story for you.
Well, so I wrote A Bakery in Paris. That was my
Yeah,
previous historical fiction book, and the half of it that is really part of my soul took place in 1870 and 1871, just prior, because this book opens in 1877,
yeah.
and it was to do with the siege of Paris and the Paris Commune. Paris kind of at one of its lowest points, and of course the other half is post World War II. So there's a nice contrast. It's Paris in ruins, basically.
Oh,
And
okay.
I knew I wanted to do something about Paris in the 1880s, which was its zenith. It's like the brightest moment in Parisian history happened so soon after those, really hard moments. And where, they were learning experiences, the siege and then the commune were, really learning moments. And it was the moment that France really finally rid itself of the monarchy, realized its potential as a republic. And as a history buff, I wanted to show that it was kind of like, in some senses, the continuing story of Paris at its moments of triumph. So we've got Paris in ruins and Paris in triumph.
Oh,
And there was no bigger moment to kind of symbolize this moment of glory for France as the cultural center of the world, then the World's Fair of 1889 and the Eiffel Tower that was its centerpiece. And then when I learned that Gustave Eiffel had an oldest daughter who, at the age of 14, took over raising of her four younger siblings, one of whom was only 4 years old.
yeah,
The baby was only 4 years old. Albert was only four, and of course, managing the household and trying to command a household staff at the age of 14.
yeah.
Uh, and because or people who were in your employees didn't always follow orders when you're 14. It's like, what do you know, kid? Let me keep doing what I've been doing.
Right.
And but then also she became her father's confidant and advisor. And that was the part I found the most interesting. Less than 2 months after her mom died, Claire was on a train to Portugal with her father to
Wow.
oversee the last moments of the building of the Maria Pia Bridge. And, writing letters to her aunt, worried about the influence that their overbearing grandmother would have on her next youngest sister, Laura. And she's 14, having very parental thoughts about a
Wow.
13-year-old. And I
Yeah.
read these letters and I'm like, okay, there's a woman here. There's a character here that I can mold into something great. And I got to spend 4 full days at the archives at the Musée d'Orsay. The Eiffel family archives are housed at the Musée d'Orsay, which was, it's the appropriate museum because they've got all the impressionist art from that era. And they let me stay there for 4 days and to
Wow.
do research, and it was so generous. But I feel like touching papers that they wrote
Yeah.
by hand, and it was just an awe-inspiring experience.
Wow, and thank you so much for sharing with us what inspired this story, but also thank you for sharing a little bit about your research experience to
Mhm.
gather the information, and even in you getting inspired about that, you saw that there was a woman that, wow, this story needs to be told. And one of the things that I like is that I think I read somewhere too that this story, even though it's about Claire Eiffel or what have you, and the building of the Eiffel Tower and all that good stuff. But it's more than the architectural structure of it. You also include love and loss and devotion to family. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's important to bring that side out of this story as well.
Yeah, well, it would be so easy to have written Claire off as a very selfless woman who basically devoted her entire life first to her four younger siblings and her father, and then her husband and her father at the same time. They all lived under the same roof. They paid
Yeah.
rent. Claire and her husband Adolphe paid rent to her father. I found that was super interesting.
Wow.
And but as they say in France, les bonnes comptes font des bons amis. Good accounts make for good friends. And so they kept everything above board so there was no fighting. And they had designated rooms that belonged to the Salle family. And she had three children in short order after she was married. And it would have been so easy to say that she was just a little society maven who kept the house running, but she was more than that. And to dig in and find that kind of kernel of of womanhood that we as 21st century feminist readers can identify with
Hmm.
was actually fairly easy. And I will admit that as a making her a painter was a contrivance of my own,
Oh.
because there was no evidence to say that she was, none that to say that she wasn't. But her father was always including little sketches in his letters to her after he'd retired. There's a lot of correspondence between them after he retired, and he'd go travel to one of the family villas, and she'd stay put, or she and her husband would travel, and he'd stay put, or what have you. And there was a lot of correspondence, and he was always sending her little sketches. But I like the idea of giving her an outlet that was feminine and acceptable, but something that would give her an inroads to her father's world through via design, and also give her an aspiration, and make her not as entirely selfless. Because I think that a trap that we fall into as women, and especially when we're talking about historical fiction, women, there's not a strong enough division between being selfish and being selfless. And I
Mm.
think that being selfish is bad, being selfless, and you have to find the middle ground. You have to find a realm where you preserve some sense of yourself. Like me, I preserve my writing, but I create a schedule in my life to be very present in the lives of my two children. And that's what Claire was doing. She wasn't just a wife and mother. She was a fully realized human being outside of those concerns. And she grappled with wanting to be more, but she ended up like managing hospitals in World War I. This isn't even in the scope of the book, but she was given like a citation from the president of France for her duty to the French soldiers for running hospitals in Switzerland during the war.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so she was a woman of great capabilities and great competence. And I think that it would have been sad to dismiss her as just being a selfless little woman who lived for others.
Wow, wow. And that leads us into this. I want to talk about the characters a little bit. You have shared with us a little bit about Claire, but let's talk a little bit about her dad, Gustavo. How would you describe him if you had to use like 5 words or more? What would you say about him?
Oh, Gustav was very driven, very ambitious, adored his family. He wanted to leave his mark on Paris, and he wanted to leave behind a legacy.
Yeah.
And that became Claire's duty as well, to preserve his dreams, often via sacrificing her own. And that was
Yeah.
what,
Yeah.
that's the kind of the main crux of her internal dilemma. But he's a very loving father. He depended on her like his own right hand.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And and of course we got to talk about her husband a little bit, Adolphe. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
Adolf. Mhm.
Yeah, what would you say about him? Describe him in about 5 words or more.
He's the classic non-alpha male. He is, he sees Claire walk into their office one day and is besotted, and thinks that she's just the best thing since sliced bread, even though it hadn't been invented yet. And thinks that she's amazing, and he realizes that there's more than just a pretty face. And he bumbles a lot at first, but realizes what everything that he respects about his Claire's father, because he's basically Gustav's protege. Everything that he respects about Gustav, Claire possesses in spades, and he learns that he has to treat them very much the same in order to be, in order to see Claire's best side. And the more respect he treats her with, the better a wife she is.
Wow, wow. Now let me ask you this about the characters, and of course there are other characters in this story as well. When you think about this book as well, is there a character that was the most interesting for Aimie to write? Look, and Aimie like borderline fun. And then at the
Mhm.
same time, is there a character in here that was a little more complex and you kind of had to take moments to kind of flesh those characters out? Share a little bit about that with us.
Well, I think Bonne Maman Eiffel, with all her rage, was really fun to write.
Okay.
She was a nasty grandma. She was a
Oh
nasty,
yeah.
nasty grandma. And she was really fun, and, but I wanted to make her somewhat sympathetic. She
Okay.
really is doing what she thinks is best for Claire and the family. She does
Mm-hmm.
not think that she's equipped to run a household at the age of 14, but
Uh-huh.
she doesn't go about it the right way. I mean, she's a very flawed she's now the real woman, Bonne Maman Eiffel, she was really the driving force behind her husband's career and her son's career, but she couldn't read and write. She was apparently illiterate, which shocked me. But she was very smart, but she was also somewhat limited in her worldview and
Mm-hmm.
very, very definite ideas about what girls should and should not do. And so while she meant well, she was kind of terrible. And then, the person who kind of takes over as Claire's foil or nemesis, her brother, Edouard, I was trying to think which brother it was for a second, but Edouard becomes kind of that thorn in Claire's shoe. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was fun because she desperately wanted him to take over the reins of the company, but he just didn't want to be part of the family legacy.
Wow.
And so it meant that Claire had to make some sacrifices in order to make sure the business didn't pass outside of family hands because it would have killed their father.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Guys, if you're just joining us, we are hanging out with author Aimie K. Runyan on today, guys. Her new book, Mademoiselle Eiffel, is out, guys. It is live and in color. And hold tight because we will be sharing with you how you can get your hands on a copy of it. But I know you guys are on the edge of your seat. Get ready. Aimie is going to share with us a short snippet. Aimie, I'm going to allow you if you want to set the scene or set the tone or what have you, but we are ready, my friend, when you are to hear a little bit of your story.
Well, I decided I'm going to read a little snippet. Pardon the glasses. I'm going to read a snippet from the beginning of chapter 2. Chapter 1 is sort of a prologue in that they've come home to their beautiful mansion on the Rue Rabelais and seen, it's been ransacked by the police. But then chapter 2 goes back to kind of the present day timeline, the beginning of the chronological timeline. You'll be happy to know that aside from the prologue, it's in chronological order. A lot of
Uh-huh.
people do prefer that. There's so many novels with lots of time jumps that I decided that, I'm a breath of fresh air. I'm going to tell this one in a linear fashion.
Okay.
But her mother has just died, and she is, they are, gathered at home after the funeral. So September 1877, Le Valois, Paris, Hauts-de-Seine, Ile-de-France, France. As often was the case after a long day, and this had been the longest of my life, my eyes trailed to the massive tapestry on the far wall of the sitting room. I'd stared at it so often that even the smallest detail was burned into my memory. It was a quaint pastoral scene, woven 100 years before by Papa's family when they settled in Paris. The grass was composed of a dozen shades of green. The sky was a melody of countless blues. Even the shepherdess's dress spanned every nuance of pink available to the imagination. Each strand of thread had been chosen with careful deliberation to make the seam seem as realistic as if it had been committed to canvas with the brush of a master painter. I imagine my great to the third degree grandfather overseeing the work on this very tapestry, perfectly content to have a seamstress remove hours worth of stitches if the colors weren't precisely right. Papa had to have come by his exacting nature somehow, and it served him well. In architecture, there was even less room for imperfection. One botched calculation could cost untold lives. And so this is a little glimpse back into the Eiffel family history. They settled in France. They were their original last name was Bonnickhausen. They were Bonnickhausen Eiffel was their actual surname, and they just dropped
Uh-huh.
the Bonnickhausen. They settled in France from Germany, gosh, in the middle of the 1700s, I want to say, and they were tapestry makers. And
Wow.
I loved learning that, and I had to incorporate that somehow. And so they, if you look at the pictures of their home on the Rue Rabelais, there are paintings and stuff, but there are tons of tapestries. And I
Uh-huh.
love the idea that they were probably Eiffel family tapestries that
Wow.
they had. That then that's how they'd kind of begun to raise in social clout. And they lived in Dijon for a while, but they were tapestry makers.
Wow, wow. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing that snippet with us. And guys, hold tight in just a little bit. We'll be sharing with you how you can get a copy of this amazing story that is hot off the press. Now, of course, Aimie, we have to play a quick round of this or that, my friend. And I promise you, there is no right or wrong answer because it is all things according to Aimie K. Runyan. Are you ready, my friend?
I am ready.
Yay. And also, Aimie, so you'll know, we're going to do a little bit of this or that fall edition or what have you. Okay. First up, Aimie, are you pumpkin pie or apple pie?
Apple pie.
Okay. Apple. I love a good apple
That's
pie too.
close. That's really close. I make a keen at pumpkin pie with fresh pumpkin puree.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. And next up, okay, Aimie, are you sweater weather or flannel weather? So you like to wear sweaters during fall or flannels?
Both, but I guess sweater if I had to choose.
Oh, well, you know what, Aimie? It's all things according to you. So if it's both, both it is. I
I
love
have
it.
tons of both.
Okay, okay. Now, Aimie, during this fall weather, can you be found baking cookies or baking bread? Bake cookies or bake bread?
Cookies. Sweet tooth. Sweet tooth a mile long.
I love that. Super cool, super cool. Okay, now, Aimie, this one is for the cafe, my friend. Is Aimie team tea or are you team coffee?
Oh, coffee. I've got my cold brew right here. Team coffee.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Aimie, for playing a round of this or that with us on today. And of course, guys, there is a giveaway on today. And my friend Aimie K. Runyon is going to help us out. Aimie, how we're going to do it, my friend, is I'm going to go up and down the comment section. You're going to tell me when to stop, and then that person will be the winner. And guys, Amy's publishers, they are sponsoring a copy of Mademoiselle Eiffel. So you will get a copy of that. And Aimie, I am ready when you are. So give me
Okay,
one
I'm
moment.
ready.
Okay, let's see, Aimie. I'm moving. So when you tell me to stop, my friend. Okay. Caitlin Wara, it's your day, my friend. You are the winner of a copy of Mademoiselle Eiffel. If you will send me your information, my friend, we'll be sure to get you a copy of that as well. So thank you and congratulations to you. And so, Aimie, the time goes by so fast, my friend. But before you share with us how we can get a copy and how we can stay connected with you, I want to ask you, what did you enjoy about bringing Mademoiselle Eiffel to life? What did you enjoy about it?
I just loved spending so much mental time in Paris. It's one of my favorite cities. I'm more of a small town girl, but I could spend, weeks and weeks and weeks in Paris and never see everything. So just getting to spend so much time immersed in Paris at its zenith was so much fun.
I can imagine how super cool is that. And look, Aimie, as a historical writer, look, all in the name of research, right?
And I got to
I love
spend
that.
like a full week in Paris doing research for this book. It was great.
Wow. Talk about super cool. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Now, of course, Aimie, they want to know. Please share with us, how can we get our hands on a copy of this book?
Well, it is available basically everywhere books are sold. And apparently there's going to be copies in Costco even. But find
Okay.
I am a fan of independent booksellers, so if you have a nearby independent bookseller, shout them out. I know that Foxtail Books has signed book plates, and the Poison Pen have signed book plates, and anywhere you like to buy books. And of course, Amazon and all your online retailers, if that's what you prefer. And you can find me at www.amiekrunyon.com. Notice the weird spelling, Aimie. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, occasionally TikTok, and very rarely Twitter. But you can find me at any of those places if you ever need to connect.
I love that, guys. You've heard it here. Aimie has shared with us where you can get a copy of the book. She's also shared with you how you can stay connected with her, and we'll be sure to put that information in the comment sections as well. Aimie, my friend, and thank you so much for hanging out with us here at the cafe. And guys, of course, if you see it out in the wild, take a picture, tag Aimie. Not only that,
Please.
once you read it, leave a review. I know that Aimie K. Runyan will be so appreciative of that. And of course, tell a friend to tell a friend to get a copy of Mademoiselle Eiffel. Aimie, again, happy release week. I know release day was yesterday, but happy release week for you, my friend. And I want to allow you to have the last words of what you want to say to the people.
Well, thank you all for listening on, and I appreciate you guys being here. And I really do hope you enjoy Claire's story. I think she's a remarkable woman who's been lost to history up until now. You can see her wax figure up in the very top of the Eiffel Tower, and people are like, "Why is that lady there with Gustave Eiffel and Thomas Edison? Just there to serve coffee?" No, she was there as her father's confidant. And if that scene had been taking place, she would have been 9 months pregnant, and they didn't
Wow.
make her wax figure pregnant, but she was. And it was a very specific moment in history, about almost exact, it was in early September. And it was, a really poignant moment that she got to meet, this major inventor. And but she's been lost and now found again, and I hope you guys enjoy her story. And I really appreciate all the love and feedback I've gotten so far, so keep it coming.
Wow, I love that. Well, thanks again, Aimie Kate Runyon, for hanging out with us here at the cafe and giving us a new release exclusive for your new book, Mademoiselle Eiffel, as well, guys. Definitely get a copy, tell a friend to tell a friend. And of course, you can stay connected with me. You can follow me. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Angela Anderson's YouTube. You can follow me on social media. I'm at Angela Anderson Presents on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, as we always say, have an amazing day, because we're having an amazing day. And until next time, we'll see you later. Be sure to get a copy of Mademoiselle Eiffel. Have a great day.
Thank you.